day, so into in spirit. Protect my energy, so I won't let you near it. Whole tribe going up, breaking through the ceiling. And when they look at us, they can see the healing. Breaking generational curses. Claim abundance cause I'm deserving. All my haters is getting nervous. We bout to blow.
Thank you for being here. My name is Larry Jefferson, and I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
The one, the only Dantrayl Smith from the great city of Memphis in the house, representing the Rad Podcast t-shirt.
Yes, sir, representing it in. Hey, I'm gonna buy like 3 of them and just keep one in my car, one in my office, and one at the house.
I know, man. Tell me about it, man. I had to make sure. I was like, I think it's clean.
Well, super excited about today's episode. If you've been able to listen in, we've been really tackling just building on community relations. We've started out talking about police brutality and building that rapport with the community. Today, we have some awesome guests on to talk about, continuing to build that relationship within the community. And I think our 3 guests will be able to fire off and really share a lot of information.
Yeah, I think another thing in addition to it, man, is we talk about riding the train of unrest, right? Like that's our theme, and trying to figure out how we can utilize this platform to really be that bridge, to be that voice for others, so that when they listen in and tune in, that they're always taking something and growing from it. So really appreciate all 3 of you all being on here. Means the world to us. Just as I talked about earlier, as we're starting this new endeavor. So I really appreciate y'all coming on.
Yeah. So without further notice, I will allow you all to introduce yourself. Ms. Singleton, we'll start with you.
Hi, thank you for having me on board. I'm Sonia Singleton. I work with the City of Fort Worth for the Neighborhood Services Department. I serve as one of the assistant directors here and oversee a lot of programs that I'm very proud of that help to serve all of Tarrant County. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some of those a little more. Anything else?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brother Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Merville Johnson. I serve as the Workforce Collaboration Director for Workforce Solutions, Tarrant County. I've been there for 23 years and have been trying to do my best to include as much of the community in Tarrant County in our services for employment and training. And I also serve as a chairman of the Fatherhood Coalition Tarrant County.
Yes, sir. So thank you guys for having me on. AJ Brown, also known as Albert Brown. I am with North Agency Consulting. I do a lot of work within family engagement, student engagement, working with various school districts and also community organizations to help them further engage the community. Have a lot of experience working directly with students as far as motivation, giving them guidance, mentorship, and also a lot of program development on the end of macro level all the way to micro level, how we can kind of move the needle. So it's kind of what I'm bringing to the conversation.
All right. My dude.
Well, so as Dantrayl said, we're definitely delighted to have all you here. And if y'all ready to jump in, shoes, I'm ready to get busy, get this conversation started.
Yeah. So as we are talking about like the riding the train of unrest, we're talking about building community, working with our community partners and individuals like yourselves that are doing phenomenal work that I think doesn't really get the notice. And so definitely want to highlight all the things that you all are doing in this podcast episode. But as we talk about community, what do you think is really needed for community growth? So how to like building those partnerships? I know we talk about it all the time, right? We say, work with this organization, go out here and do this. We got this going on, we got that going on. But is the community really working together? You know what I mean? Like, how do we really build that growth?
I think Albert said something that I wanted to start with. He used 2 words. He said on a macro level and on a micro level. And a lot of times, too many people want to start doing something to help the community without doing adequate research. And so there becomes a duplication, or it's diluted services. And so, and then also sometimes it's wanting to feel good about what they're doing instead of feeling good about what the community needs. And so I think that there's we need to do some evaluation of what motivates us to move forward and do work in the community. Is it a desire to have our names placed out there, or is it a desire to fix an unmet need? And who can we partner with to do that?
I like that. Anybody else?
I can just sort of, I guess, piggyback a little bit on that from a different angle. Years ago, I participated before I started with Workforce Solutions. I did some community organizing, and it was there was a process that all of us involved in. I was the project director. I had a team of about 4 community organizers, and we went through a training that was sponsored by the Center for Substance Abuse, that was called Consensus Organizing. And what I found to be so useful in that, not only in the terminology, but in the implementation of that, is that, as sort of what Sonia was saying, is that, rather, and both have alluded to this macro, micro, but the consensus organizing, the idea was that you don't start, from the top of an organization, or the top of the chart, or the ones who think they have all the answers. You really have to turn that triangle upside down, make start at where the people are, like in the neighborhoods. And what we were doing at that time was trying to address some of the plagues of drugs and violence and things like in certain neighborhoods. So why would you come with all your solutions and these grand ideas, and you don't start out in the community where the you have to get them involved, get buy-in, and actually not only buy-in, but let them become the creators of the solutions, and then you become partners with them in trying to implement those solutions. And that, to me, I think gets lost. Organizations that we work in, the one I work in, others that I observe, seem to be more comfortable working still from this top-down type of flow of things, and it just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm always trying to be the voice as much as I can of what I consider the voiceless. The voice is a voice of the marginalized. And I often say, I refer to myself, I'm the neighborhood boy that they let into the big boardroom, because that's how I see myself. I'm going to be trying to say, where does my voice fit for those people that are not sitting here? So that's kind of the way I approach it.
Yeah, and kind of going along with both what they're saying. Something that I've noticed, so Minority Women Business Enterprise. Have you guys ever heard of that? MWB. MWB. Yep. So a lot of people are not familiar with MWBE, and kind of what Merv was saying is that a lot of information stays at a level beyond those who may actually benefit the most from it. So it's not communicated down. So working with the One Civic Group, that was something that we really want to push, was Minority Women Business Enterprise, making companies, solo entrepreneurs, all those individuals aware of the access they had to public and government and county contracts based on where this federal policy was kind of laid out to give them to kind of balance out how they were servicing all people, how they were giving out these state contracts to all individuals. But a lot of us were not aware of that. And a lot of us still are not aware of that. But like I said, it goes back to what Merv was saying as far as like a pipeline of communication. I think to really have a great impact within our community, that we have to learn how to communicate on every social economic level of the strata of those within our community. So like I said, it's millions of dollars of contracts that are not being filled by could be minority African American individuals who have businesses, but they just are not aware of that access to the opportunity, or that they are put in a preferred state if they would just go ahead and be certified as a MWBE. So that's kind of one of the things, like what you guys are saying, that communication, that pipeline communication, we have to improve that, find ways that we can connect to everyone within the community and that other people are not left out. So yeah.
I think that's so true. And,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know, having you on here, Albert, I assume you're much younger than I am, really is very encouraging. Merville, you're the oldest one on here, I know. But it's very encouraging to hear that. And I believe this RAD podcast, not only with the topics that you bring to the community, but with the people you bring to the table to discuss them, are going to be connecting, because Merville and I work together a lot. And Mr. Brown, I'm going to reach out to you as well.
Yes, ma'am. Let's do it.
Because there's so much work to be done. You know, people have not, they suffer for what, church boy? Lack of knowledge,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how do we impart that knowledge to our community? For example, City of Fort Worth does millions of dollars of contract every year.
Wow.
When we build a community center, it's gonna cost between 11 and 20 million dollars, and there are subcontractors who can bid on different jobs, bid on the concrete, bid on just different parts of it. But when we go to a meeting of all the contractors there, we are not at that table.
Wow.
We're not at the table. So my team, we're working on how to communicate that, how to work with getting that information out. And not only that, what's the capacity building we need to do in our community to help our folks respond successfully to these type of opportunities that avail them.
It's funny that, all three of y'all said something that was kind of touching, but one thing that stuck with me was how sometimes we go in and we think we know, well, I'm not gonna say we, individuals think they know what's best for the community, and they go in and provide all these services and unaware if the services are already available, unaware if the community needs it and all this. And having worked for the city of Dallas for a few years, I saw this a lot, and working in the council office really opened up my eyes. So thank y'all for sharing that. But one other thing that to me is kind of bothering is our next question. It talks about what will happen, what will need to happen for other communities to see value, and in those communities that are not quite there yet. So many times you see all these, hell, you can go down San Jacinto and Munger, and you see these big nice houses over on Swiss and all this kind of stuff in Dallas, and then you cross the street and the neighborhood is ran down. So what would it take for those communities that are thriving to see the value in the communities that are not, other than regentrifying them and getting them out of there?
Right.
Good question.
I think that value has to be found within. So members within the community, they have to recognize the value of their community, which may come as a point of creating awareness. What you don't know what you don't know. So that's how gentrification works. They purchase the land at a rate much lower than what it's going to be worth down the road, because we are not aware of what we have. So I think that's kind of where we can come in. The people within the community see the value in your community. How can we maximize that? How can we pitch that to ensure that we have fresh foods, grocery stores, showing the value, making sure that we're not, eminent domain is not taking over our communities, where, those kind of things. I think that's like a education that you do within that community, working with people within the community by somebody, hopefully, who lives in a community. So
I think that's very true. We don't know what we don't know. And one of the things we often see at the transition of life, when our elders move on, families then lose their wealth.
Yep.
That home, they lose that land. And so there's great opportunity for workshops to share with people how to maintain your family, homes, your home place and land, and how to put things, place things in trust so that you won't lose it, and ways to save on taxes. We need our professionals, our attorneys, or whoever, our realtors, and to help us out in that regard, helping people not lose what families have fought so hard to obtain.
Is that a conversation or a collaboration with like community leaders and then like individuals that are in the know of these type of conversations? Because a lot of times, like you say, you don't know what you don't know, but where do they get the know from?
So we have held, the neighborhood services department has held some workshops before, and it was like a Saturday workshop. One part of it was how to buy land from the city of Fort Worth. Another part was educating families on how to put their families, transition ownership of a property. I think there has to be first a willingness, and it has to be it doesn't have to be about whose name is on it, but it has to be a wholehearted investment that we want to give to our community. I hate the word empowerment, but in a sense, we are wanting to give knowledge for people to be able to act on in their lives. And I'll tell you, I'll be one of the first at the table to help with doing that.
And I mean, we've all heard this before, but yeah, I still think it's true that our houses of worship, our houses of faith, whatever you want to call it, are without a doubt the most visible, numerous within our neighborhoods. And I just think they're the most underutilized institutions that we have that are so accessible to so many people. And at one point in our history, I mean, as you go back, that they had this multifaceted, more of a multifaceted role of whether it was getting people to vote, politics, information sessions, keeping us totally abreast of everything we needed to know to thrive. And it seems as we have become more I guess materially comfortable, there's been more success materially, that they're losing that sense of purpose. And if there was a way, I think, and I'm not saying all of them, but I mean, they should be having, evening sessions, where you have this kind of information readily available with people that they trust in that community, that they can relate to, that they know. And I don't know, and maybe, community centers, neighborhood associations, I mean, whatever venues that we have access to people, we've got to maximize that. Social media, find ways of using Facebook besides talking about your last
whatever
family picnic and crusade or whatever. I don't know.
This is a question, Merville, in response to what you just said, but feel free, anybody else, to chime in. Why do you think that they've lost that purpose, that drive, that I guess in the past historically has always kind of been there? How do you think it fell off? Why?
There's a preacher on this, isn't
I know I'm a preacher's kid, so I don't mind tackling this. He's being reticent in his response. I think I said something earlier. We are doing things because it makes us feel good, because it gives us presence, and then it dilutes the impact. So that's part of it. Unfortunately, some in the faith community has made it's been very financially beneficial. It has become
that was nice.
Well, see, Larry, you go right on ahead. Lay it on out. But
That's
it's,
put it out there. We being real.
The truth shall set you free.
the motivation is divided. You know, and so I'll give you a perfect example of something recently that happened. When we've had COVID, the Tarrant Area Food Bank was just phenomenal about responding with food for our community. Every church on every other corner had a giveaway day. Finally, Tarrant Area Food Bank woke up and said, no, we're going to have a mass delivery. Because serving 20 people here, serving 50 here, when we can serve 100. And so why did we have that? It's because I wanted to say, I've got this at my church. Well, you know, the church has got to return to being our community and outside of those four walls.
I think what happens is that what gets attention is what draws a lot of people. So you have a lot of churches that are doing that work that you guys have mentioned. Like they're in the trenches doing that kind of tough work direct communities. Like I knew one pastor, Pastor Cade, may his soul rest in peace, where he was within, I believe it's Sandcraft. It's a community close to Fort Worth, I believe, in between. They didn't even have running water. They didn't have any of those services from the city. He stayed there constantly with that particular community, make sure they got access to bottled water, things for sanitation. And he stayed there, and even to the point where he actually had died in his church because it caught on fire, running and trying to save someone. But those stories don't get told. So what gets told is what you can get the most attention. What gets the most attention is what makes people feel the best. So what happens is that we see the platforms, the individuals where they can really connect and make people feel good. And you see that, and you say, okay, well, why are churches not doing more? But the reality is a lot are doing things, we don't see it. And where churches where they can maybe be strongest, where we can work more together and doing things like that as far as connecting community. But what Mervyn was saying is about addressing the whole man. You know, we focus heavily on the spiritual aspect, but we have the social, the emotional areas of a man, the soul, you know, the physical aspects. We're talking about food deserts, healthy places to run, healthy places to walk, green space. All of those things tie into that whole gospel initiative and movement. So I think what happens, like I said, there are instances where you may have some churches that may be doing that, but on a predominant level, from what I see and the individuals I interact with, they're in the trenches. It's just that it's not getting as much attention. It's not being brought so much to the light. And then sometimes, like you said, talk about capacity. We don't know which direction, how we can move the needle with it. So that's what I mean. That's my Merv said, preaching a bit. That's my 2 cents I would add to that. But I do feel like churches are very centered in the community, where they have the trust of those most times they have the trust of those in that community. And by doing that, they then connect with individuals like Mervyn and Miss Singleton to come in and do sessions to make people aware of things that otherwise wouldn't be aware of. I worked with Fathers in Arms and ID a little while back, and my main mission was making men feel comfortable on campus. Because when the men feel comfortable on campus, they will talk to the teachers. They will help the students do homework. They will do all of that, and research shows how that impacts overall students' performance. Yes, so that was my mission while I was there, was doing that, and that's kind of like that micro level. But at the same time, I'm thinking on a macro level. How does this impact on a larger level? When they come in, what services can I connect you to? What can I make you aware of that you're not already aware of? So those kind of things is what I think. So yeah, I think I went on a tangent, but I'm back.
No,
that's all right.
That's good information.
Man, I wanted to add one other thing, is that we really need to make our government work for us. And we need to work for our government. And that is learning what the processes are. There's no reason we need to have more people involved on different committees that make decisions about your community. And that comes from just learning how to become more involved. It's our responsibility. You know, we've seen a last couple of years have been a bit crazy in our political environment, and not to change the discussion around that, but we have to register to vote. We've got to go out and vote. We've got to do more than go to city council meetings and scream, but we've got to do the work, because our fight, the civil rights fight, is more sophisticated now.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be that we scream and say discrimination and we get work done. But now you've got to understand the inner workings of it to get some work done. And that's my tangent.
Well, you kind of lead into the next question that we wanted to talk about in terms of just the roles of civic leaders, council persons, government administrations. What role do they play in the community development and evolution of that community?
Well, I would just start by saying that their role would be a lot more impactful if they, to the extent to which they bring in more inclusive voices, more diverse voices.
Okay.
In the various organizations that I have been in, it's one thing that has always been irritating to me. And I said, I'm saying various organizations. We're organizations I've been.
He made sure he was clear with that one.
Right.
The Tarrant County College, the American Airlines, when I was in the private sector. But anytime I could walk by, a glass enclosed boardroom, and everybody in there looks the same, and I don't see anybody that looks like me. It's always, how in the world do you think that whatever you're coming up with as a plan is going to be representative of everybody that's in this community?
That's right.
So, unless they're doing that, you're going to be making mistakes and misjudgments all over the place if you're not willing to. And here the issue is that it's more painful. It's tedious. It takes more work to hear people, that some who may want to scream. They've been frustrated so long that you invite them to a meeting, their first input might be screaming, but you may need to hear that to get under the pain that they've been feeling for years and years and years in order to address the concerns they have. And so I'm always pushing for ways to make the input into whatever your work plan is or your service plan as expanding the voices, making the voices as diverse as possible, so that it's inclusive of the community at large.
There was a study that was done that's called Awake to Woke to Work, Building a Race Equity Culture. And it was done by Equity in the Center. So awake means just even being conscious of it, that hollering, that screaming. Woke is, well, we need to ask some questions about this, a survey of how you're feeling in the workplace. And work is implementing policies policies of change. And so we've got a lot of work to do, just to get to awake. How do we have others to value us, and how do we have what should our leaders do to create more community and development and evolution? Is they have to value us as well.
That's right.
Bringing others to the table, not just your cronies, not just your buddies.
So I don't know if you guys ever Lil Uzi Vert. His name's Lil Uzi. He's an actual artist. You guys ever heard of him? So Lil Uzi Vert, he's an artist, hip hop artist, and he has a $20 million diamond he had been sewn into his head.
I heard about that.
Heard of him? Huh?
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I jumped in the crowd and somebody took it or something.
Well, they knocked it off, but he got it back.
Okay.
So in saying that, to say this, if he can put a $20 million diamond in his head, there's nothing that's a barrier to us in this particular age. So, and that's kind of what I talk to my students about. Nobody's gonna come to rescue you. So a lot of it is that you have to become educated and aware of the opportunities and jump on those opportunities. Because as I go through the list of people, we can go through LeBron, we can go through all the people that we can see that the fight that was had in the 60s, fight that was had in the 50s is not the same fight that we will be encountering.
That's right.
A lot of our fight, especially among my generation and younger, it's a fight in regards to education and awareness. we're losing on a front of an economic front. It's not a so much just a black and white front as
Right.
other barriers. The barriers is ignorance, is that we're not aware of it, of what I'm seeing. This is my opinion. So that's kind of where I really push in regards to like even working with students or even with people, is find that where's the opportunity? How can you make the best of the situation? No one's going to make it a level field for you. No one can even come in and make it a level field. And even if they make it a level field, it doesn't mean you're going to win. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where my heart is when I'm working with students and even working with adults, is let me provide whatever information that I might know, and what you might know, you can share with me, and let's find ways to find solutions. We're not going to focus on the problems. We're going to find the solutions, and we build our own table instead of waiting for it.
I like that. I like that. So as we talk about, those who are in the community, how does someone transitioning to becoming a resident in some of these communities, how do we integrate them effectively into our community so they can be advocates? Because a lot of times individuals, especially with some of these neighborhoods, recently bought a house, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with Dallas, but over by the Cedar Crest golf course, they're making some really, really nice houses over there. But the thing is, they booting some people that's been there for a long time out, knocking houses down, and we even considered buying a house over there without knowledge of other than the street knowledge of what the neighborhood is like, but not aware of some of the fights that the community has put up to get this, to get that. So how do you integrate new residents into this fight that you're trying to get better for this community? I know I said a lot.
Well, you said a lot that touches on a lot. Earlier I talked about making our government work for us and us working with our government. A lot of those decisions are made at development committee meetings. And that decision was made 5 to 10 years ago. And we weren't at that table. We have no idea. And I only have a little bit of an idea from my work with the city, how long it takes to get that community built. Normally it takes years. And so we really, again, need to understand what is development, how it happens, because it doesn't happen overnight. It feels like it's overnight when those bulldozers come in. When we start seeing that change, when we start noticing different homes being built, yeah, it seems like overnight, but it's been years in the making.
You're right on with that knowledge about how the system works, understanding how the system flows and works. The time I spent working with the school district, I realized that parents actually control the school district, if they knew that. The superintendent works for the parent. They don't answer to the superintendent. The parent doesn't answer to the superintendent. The superintendent answers to the parent, because how they are put in place, the way the funds are used, the levels of permissions that they have to get from parents in regards to what they're doing on campus, that parents might not be aware that just what you're giving permission to. Like, they actually looked into some of the designs, some of the most failing schools. Parents can make demands for changes within those schools very easily by putting together a certain a letter that's sending it to the TEA, to the board, and it goes through a certain process. But parents have a lot of, that's just one example of that. But I think, like I said, sometimes it's our own ignorance, what we're not aware of, that we don't understand how the system flows, how it works, and it moves around us. So,
And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I had people that were asking, how do I log on to the podcast?
Oh,
Trying to forward the link that you said. I'm so sorry.
gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, no, yeah. The only thing and I was listening in as I was trying to do that, but I just think, even in the way we communicate sometimes, the language that we use, it can either turn off or bring in people who feel they've been left out.
Yeah.
And as being a language student myself, I'm really sensitive about how we communicate. I sometimes, I pick up some of our letters that go out and information, infomails or whatever. and it's, it's written in such a, polished, bureaucratic sounding, and all I'm wanting to say to you is that, we've got a way to make you find a career that can change your life. We don't use language like that.
Yeah.
It's put in a way that it just doesn't reach some of the people that that I meet in the neighborhood to say, how can I change my life? I'm dealing with a single father right now who's been raising his young daughter since she was born, and he's struggling, trying to find his way, in our system to get the kind of job that he needs to take care of his child. And that's when I've been dealt with some of the frustrations of trying to reach out to someone who is a counselor and say, well, you do this and you do that, attend this virtual forum, and we can create so many artificial hoops that for people to jump through, that by the time they get discouraged. And even though we have things that are available that can assist them, our systems are just so convoluted, for lack of a better word, that they can't access what we have to offer. So that's why I say include them. I mean, you got to, I think Sonia mentioned the surveys. How often are you doing, community surveys, with the people out there who are jobless or homeless, or, to say, how can we make the system where it's user friendly to you? If you don't have a, I've been fighting. I was going to try to show it, but you don't need to see it. I've got it's a little. I know AJ and Sonia both are familiar. It's called a Dad's Pocket Guide. I've got them around here somewhere, but it's a little booklet of resource information, and the push of my organization is like, digitize that thing. We can digitize it. They can just have their tablet and their iPhone. Some of the people we serve in the neighborhoods don't have tablets, don't have.
Right.
And they're still, and I'm getting, requests every week. Do you have a box of those guides? That's what they want. That's how they want to find their information. So eliminate the hand guide, and then you eliminate a group of people who don't have access.
Without a doubt.
Right, not comfortable, getting it through these, all these fancy tech ways that all of us are accustomed to.
Right.
Also, like AJ. Yeah.
I wanted to add one or a couple of words, because I don't know how to say one. But yeah, I'm a little loquacious sometimes. But Merville said it very well, where people feel welcome, where people feel at ease. It's creating a feeling of belonging, that they are welcome in the room. They're welcome at the table. They are welcome to access the different services. So it's our responsibility to help create that community feeling, a compassionate, friendly community.
It's funny. I'm in my third house, my third neighborhood, and I don't recall ever receiving any type of community survey of how they can better serve me. I actually, even though I'm not just a real fan of police, I had a conversation with one. I was like, if I wanted to know who's working for me, who's serving this neighborhood, how would I know? Because when I go to your website, it don't say anything. You don't send nothing out in the mail. All I see is one dude just riding around here every now and then. Like, how do I know who's serving this community? And she was like, that's a good question. You should send it to such and such and such. And I'm like, but this is your opportunity to move it forward. You can use it as your initiative. Steal it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care, but do something with it. Don't tell me to move the needle somewhere else. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah.
Just to answer that question, here in Fort Worth, it's beneficial to be a part of your neighborhood association. And if you're not a part of if you don't have a neighborhood association, reach out to the city and create one. Because the neighborhood police officers come to those meetings monthly to give a report on what's happening with crime in your neighborhood. The more they see your face, the more I think they are will respond to what the needs are of the community. So.
Yeah. So one of the things that we always like to do on our podcast is, how we move the needle forward, right? So our listeners that are currently online, listening right now, and then also for those that will watch this podcast later. But I want each one of you all to answer this question in regards to what is our role, right? I mean, we talked about some of the things that we can specifically do, and you all are kind of in the trenches working with so many different populations of people. But what can our role be, and how can we ourselves be that thriving force to help move the needle forward? Come on now.
Look, I hate to always jump in there, but I think one of the things that we should do, or some of the things we should do, is make sure we are walking the walk that we've been talking today. Merville made a very interesting comment, and it made me think about some of our services. Why are we creating barriers and artificial hoops for people to jump through? And are we only asking people for the very necessary items to access services? So we have to evaluate us. We have to evaluate ourselves, and again, going back to our intent. My intent needs to be to work myself out of a job where there's less poverty and more people who are more self-reliant. So that should be my intent. But the other part is to make sure we are partnering more so and not thinking about my name or my organization, but meeting the needs of our community.
Say that one more time.
Wow. Yeah. That's a quote for you right there, man.
Shit. I'm just saying. My mom on here, so I ain't gonna say the word I want to say.
What up, Mom?
Hello, son. You can say whatever you want to say. You're a grown man.
I didn't ask you to get on here and say nothing.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
I love it.
Oh, Mama, that's in the house. All right.
Hey, that's my twin, man. We got the same birthday.
Wow. Well, me and my mom were only 5 days apart. She was December 15th. I was December 20th. So. But, I guess, and for me, and you mentioned my mom or your mom, but I always think of myself as being maybe just 1 or 2 steps from being in whatever situation it is that I'm trying to help.
Oh, absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
it's a sense that, but for the grace of God, there go I. So that way I never think I can't ever be in a different category. It's
Right.
like, I mentioned this brother that's has the single. He's a single dad and is trying to take care of his daughter. I mean, he was, he's struggling, trying to find a job. This is not within my job description, but and he said, anything I could do. Listen, I said, I have some, yard work out here. That's not part of what I'm supposed to do in my job. But I said, you come by, here's my address. You do some yard work. I'm gonna pay. So it's this willingness, to step outside, I guess, the box, whatever box that you're in, and to be open to being flexible and responsive to people where they are. Just show that you're your own humanity. I try not to turn anybody away if there's any way I can help them. That's all. And I'm saying, and I reference my mom because that came. That's a spirit that came from my mom. It's like, you don't, and she was a single mom with 8 children.
Wow.
She raised, and that was the one thing. The expectation is that you always are there for your brother and sister. You don't leave home with one, and you come back by yourself and don't know where they are. And that was just one of those things that she instilled in all of us, and we still have that to this day. So I just try to carry that forward in my work, that spirit.
So I guess the one thing that I would do, something I've shared with some of the teachers. So I work on a campus during the week outside of my work with my business. I'm on a campus working with students and working with teachers. One thing I share with them is that, leave your cape at home and bring your. So one thing, you can't save everyone, but you can serve everyone. That's kind of my philosophy of life, is that what can I do to serve in wherever venue I'm in? And thankfully, God has put me in some places where I'm like, I should not be in this room right now.
Right.
I get into the room. But my experience of what I had, growing up, I was able to bring that into that room and give a perspective that maybe that wasn't there before. So that's kind of why I feel like with everyone, what I'm going to do is that wherever I go, is try to bring value to the conversation, to the people that I connect with. Always finding a way to bring value and add value. And if we all are doing that same thing, there's no way for our community not to thrive and grow. So that's what I'm going to do, is every situation, communication, and any networking encounter I have, to try to find a way to add value.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal, but what I just heard Albert just say, well, leave your cape at
home,
but you can serve everybody, because that's better, because I've had friends that tell me that have said, Merville, Jesus Christ is the savior of the world, not you.
Yep.
Right.
You can't save everybody, so I like that one better. Leave your cape at home.
But you can serve them. So serving is about knowing what is their need, and what can I provide to meet part of that need. I mean, I can beat all of it. What can I give you towards that need? So it's very important.
Yeah. That's good. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Shoes. This conversation was very dear to both Dantrayl and I, and we appreciate you all coming in. I'm sure our guests, based off of the comments, they appreciated you as well. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing that knowledge and being able to drop some gems and some information. If you would like, please share a contact information, that if someone needs to get in touch with you or have additional questions, put it in the chat so they can reach out. But before we go, Dr. Smith normally drop us with a great quote. So what you got for us today, sir?
All right, man. This quote states, "There is immense power when a group of people with similar interests gets together to work toward the same goals. And he who masters that power, formed by a group of people working together, has within his grasp one of the greatest powers known to man." And so that was by, I'm gonna butcher his brother's name, Adowe Konyekan.
Oh, man, you should have just said unknown.
You said unknown author.
I know, right? Tell me about it, bro.
But then they'll get you for plagiarism. I be on my students like, you just came up with this quote. I don't know where it's from. Like, It's plagiarism where I'm from.
Yeah.
But again, thank you all so much. We appreciate y'all. Guests, thank you so much for being here. We definitely appreciate you all. What we got next week, man?
Man, so next week, you all are going to be in for a treat, because we got two brothers, man, that's going to come on, and they're going to lay this foundation as we talk about who is really benefiting from the welfare system. That's gonna be dope. So these two experts coming in are going to give some huge knowledge on the welfare system and truly who's really benefiting and taking advantage of it. So
yes, sir. Well, until then, have a great Monday. We appreciate y'all. Thank you again for being here. Have a safe travel home if you're not already there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for
It's an excellent podcast. Excellent.
Y'all the ones. People see that and all they try to do is eat off you. You know what I'm saying? They try to feed off your shit and feed off your vibe and shit. But you already know the vibes, bro. You know how we coming, man. That's why we gonna stay thorough. We gonna stay solid. We gonna make sure we keep that protection for us.
We bout to blow, blow.